Good morning. We are off to the cornfields this morning. We're going to have one of those really big days. Maybe we can have a 100-acre day. Get a third of the remaining corn out. I don't know. We'll see. Brock will be here in a little while. Either in 20 minutes or in 2 hours and 20 minutes, depending on how much he got to sleep at his real job last night, where he worked a 24-hour shift and then volunteers to come here to help us because he likes it. Anyway, we got some short rows in front of these woods yet. We can make some rounds. So we'll keep doing that until he gets here and start pecking away at this, seeing how it all goes. All right, well, I took a minute to wipe the windows down. I've got this car duster thing there that it takes the dust off. It doesn't get them super clean, but for the minute that it takes, it makes them a whole lot easier to see through. And we moved the cart over there. There's a little more convenient to dump into. We'll get our grain tank covers opened up here. Get going. The wheat looks good. That is our wheat across the road here. That was the last field planted, so it's grown a little bit and off to a good start. Good stand establishment in the wheat crop this year. That's a good start for next year. All right, so we are moving right along here. We're almost up to the edge of the woods. I got one more pass over there, and then I think the next one actually curves around them, maybe. I don't know exactly. But it is 11 o'clock, so Brock should be here soon, which is perfect timing because we're going to need grain cart in these longer rows. This corn is better over here. I mean, it's not super fantastic, but it is better. We're still averaging in the 215 to 220 range. Most of the rounds, 212, 221, 218, 210, 219, 290. So it's been better corn. The average is climbing. It's up about 6-7 bushels since we started this morning, so that's good. We are right on that variety change. In fact, you can kind of see the background map's going to change here. Right here is where we ran out. See how these two rows kind of taper out? Well, they were running out of seed, and then that row ran out of seed, and so then we stopped with the planter about right there, put new seed in, and this is the variety that planted the rest of the field, so that's where that happened. I think my grain cart driver is here. Excellent. That will make this go a little faster. One thing we do have out here yet is my source trials. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. What the heck? How does that happen? Corner of these woods, I'm off a row. Anyway, we're going to talk a lot more about that source trial and that product and what it is and how it works when we get over to that. The yield monitor will keep track of the data, but I may run some strips where we actually weigh them out, pull a sample, kind of like we did with that high management plot a couple weeks ago, just so I have a little bit harder data to go off of. All right, I have reached my source trial. I actually have this replicated twice out here. So we're going to harvest strips. We're going to do 8 rows of each strip, weigh and take a sample, and then do it again, basically. We're going to do it twice. So that pink flag that's over there is kind of a split between the two trials because they're sprayer passes, right? So they're 120-foot strips. So this one says no source. So this, I believe, is the center of the strip that did not get any. And then this is a split between the passes. And here we have the VT applied source. So we're testing timing and application or not application. Right? So I think what I need to do is find the sprayer or the pass. And I want to try and be consistent and take the same pass on all of them, you know, so we're not on the center planter tracks or whatever. It shouldn't matter a whole lot because the anhydrous applicator didn't match the planter or whatever. It shouldn't matter. But we're going to try and be consistent as much as possible. Okay, so this is strip number 1, VT applied source. So this went on with our tassel fungicide through the Haggy. I do have my measuring wheel that we can use to measure the length if we need to, but I reset a distance counter on here and we might just call that close enough for what we're doing here. I'll just do that on every pass. Brock's gonna meet me on the far side. We're gonna dump standing still. We're gonna pull a sample from the grain tank so we have a sample to get moisture, and we're gonna write down a weight from the grain cart scale. And then it'll be just like we're doing a test plot essentially. So now I can jump over, how many passes? 9? I think. I'll have to do some math. 8 combine passes to get to the same pass in the next sprayer pass. Is that right? So each sprayer pass is 120 feet. 120 feet is 2 60-foot planter passes. A 60-foot planter pass is 3 20-foot combine passes, so it would be 6 passes. So we want to jump over 6 from where we're at to be in the same pass relative to the sprayer over there and planter. All right, so we got our first sample. We're dumping into the cart. We've got our Agromatics Libra pulled up here. So awesome. This is such a sweet system. So I tared it before we started to unload. We're gonna sit here and unload, and then we will record the weight from this strip. We had 2,129 feet in that first pass. And my way of recording this, so we're at 11,6, come on now, 11,680. Take a picture. All right, well, we're doing the second strip now on the way back up. My GPS doesn't work very good on my iPad, but we're in this strip here that did not get sprayed. This is my application map from VT, and I can't pull them up side by side on my iPad, I don't think, but if I pull up this map, this is my V5 application map, and this strip is not in either one. We're kind of between this one and the one that was over here, so we've got another one of those over there. Yeah, we're in the right spot. We're gonna see what it does. Distance counter. Well, doesn't get a whole lot closer than that. We're like 10 pounds different. We'll see if the moisture is the same or not, but that would lead you to believe that they were not different at all. We're gonna go down here and do the VT or the V5 applied one. Now this is the one that I was most impressed with looking at all year. It visually seemed like this one made the biggest impact, or had a bigger difference. So this one, however, is a result, and it was also about 20 feet shorter because the rows are not perfectly square, and it weighed a little bit more. So yeah, that is promising. So that's one replication. We're gonna do another one. I need to go back from the front to get to them because I don't know exactly where they are, or if they're exactly the next sprayer passes or not. So we're gonna go down here and shell our way back to the front and do this again. All right, well, we've got some more flags down here. I wonder if I labeled any of them. The ones down there I had labeled what they were a little bit, and I can pull it up on my application map so I can figure this out even if they're not written on, but it's a lot easier when you actually label the flags. This one says something. Left, source V5, right, no source. Source V5, no source, and the VT source is going to be on the other end of that. Perfect. So that's a split row, which puts that flag in our middle row, which is exactly where I need to know where we're at. Sweet. This one is V5 source, which we knew. I had this flag here. My flags have taken a beating this year. Next year, if I do these again, we need to put them off of the end row, because when I come through here and get the ends, it gets caught in a corn row and destroyed. That's all right, this is an old one anyway. That's an NK soybean sign from back when I used to sell NK soybeans. That's been years. Got a collection of all my flags in the back of the cart there because it's just the best spot to store them to get them back. So, all right, I think I know what we need to do. Get our strips done here. pick up this year that we missed. Can't be losing them. Alright, well, we're on our last strip here. This is the second strip with the VT application. So, we'll see how it does. Yeah. All good. I think we might quit for lunch, go test our samples so we can get some results from this, and then come back and finish it up. We got about 45 acres left to do here. Okay, well, we got those strips weighed out and stuff. Now, we will still have the actual harvest map, the data from this that we can overlay with the application map and analyze it on the computer and get a bigger look at bigger areas. I just kind of wanted to see what those strips would do. I think the first replications were better than the second replications because I was on the sprayer pass and there was quite a bit of corn that had gotten run over. In the third strip for sure, not so much the second one, some in the first one. It's gonna skew the results, and I don't like that. So we'll look at it and see what it says. We gotta get our samples tested. Phil came back with another truck, so we're gonna load that and then take it home and get some food and test those samples. We'll go from there. Before we do that though, let's talk about Source. So they're getting a free plug here. I am a dealer for them, I guess. That's what you could call me for them. So I can sell this product, so keep that in mind as I'm going through it. But I've learned a little bit about it and how it works. This is going to get a little bit in-depth and science-y for you. But yesterday we took a day off from making really in-depth videos compared to the one the day before, and now you're getting a second one this week. So, Source, what is it? Well, in order to get into what Source is, first we have to understand how our soil works and the biology and the fertility in our soil. So we know that plants need nitrogen, they need phosphorus, they need potassium, and a whole list of micronutrients in order to grow well and produce high-yielding crops or lots of corn, right? And so in our soil, we have a lot of these nutrients kind of already there. They may be plant available, they may not be plant available. For example, phosphorus, depending on which soil test lab you send your samples to and what tests they run, they could run a Bray test, or what we call a P1 Bray and a P2 Bray. A P1 essentially tells you how much phosphorus is available in your soil. A P2 Bray tells you how much phosphorus is in your soil, but is not necessarily plant available. Hold on. So, well, how do we make the difference? And so, I'm going to throw some random numbers out, and I'm just making these up because I don't have any specific soil samples that I can look at and reference, but I have seen some in the past. But say you could have a P1 Bray of 20 parts per million. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah, parts per million. And well, that's not a high number. It's not a horrible number. It's just kind of like that's a bare minimum that you need to raise a good crop. 20. You could, in that same soil sample, have a P2 Bray of 80 or 100, where you have a lot of phosphorus in the soil. It's just tied up, and the plants can't get it. So then the question becomes, how do we break that down? How do we make it plant available so that our plants can use that phosphorus instead of applying more and more and more every year, right? And one of the processes that nature has allowed for to do that is through microbes and microorganisms in our soil that can take that phosphorus and break it down and make it plant available. Sort of the same thing with nitrogen, although nitrogen's a little bit different because we don't store it in our soil, being a leachable nutrient. But our atmosphere is made up of 78% nitrogen. The problem is the nitrogen in the atmosphere is not available to plants. They can't absorb it through their leaves. They can't take it up through their roots. It has to be in a nitrate or a nitrite form and be in the soil solution in order to get into that plant. So again, how do we take atmospheric nitrogen, make it available for our plants? Well, we do it by applying anhydrous, 28% liquid nitrogen, different fertilizer products putting it in the soil that then is available to our corn roots in order to help produce that crop. That fertilizer is made through the Haber-Bosch process, I believe, which basically uses a lot of energy to take atmospheric nitrogen and converts it into ammonia gas, and then can be from there be converted into other forms of nitrogen. Expensive, you have to apply it. How else can we do it? Well, lightning can take atmospheric nitrogen, turn it into a plant available form in the soil. So that's one way to do it, but that's essentially what the Haber-Bosch process does, is it uses electricity to turn it into that. But also, again, microbial activity can take atmospheric nitrogen and make it available to plants. The best example of this would be the inoculant that we put on our soybean seed, the bradyrhizobia. That's a specific biological that converts atmospheric nitrogen into plant available via a symbiotic relationship with the roots in a soybean plant. That doesn't happen in corn. We cannot inoculate corn and have that same symbiotic relationship. Corn is not a legume. That doesn't work. However, there are other microbes in the soil that can and do convert atmospheric nitrogen into plant available nitrogen. And so what the source is essentially, it's playing in the biological space of how do we make those microbes that are already in our soil work better and do a better job and convert more of that phosphorus into a plant available form, or more atmospheric nitrogen into a plant available form. And so there are several products kind of in this space. Most of them are biologicals, where you're actually adding the the microorganisms to the soil, either via a liquid through your starter or on a seed treatment kind of thing. But it's adding the biological in order to try and increase the numbers of them to make this process happen faster. Source is a little bit different. So plants and the microbes in the soil are able to communicate to each other. Basically, plants naturally have a way to signal the microbes in the soil to say, hey, I could use some nitrogen, can you go find some for me? And in return, I'll excrete some carbohydrates, some sugars out of my roots. You can feed on those, but give me some nitrogen or some phosphorus or a whole list of micronutrients that the plant can kind of signal to those microbes. Well, how do they do that? They do it through a molecule called a strigolactone. Essentially, the plants produce these strigolactones, they excrete them through their roots, and the microbes sense those molecules in the soil, and then they will go and find some nitrogen, find some phosphorus, and bring it to those roots in order to get it into the plant. The plant excretes the sugars. Everybody's happy, right? Everybody's happy. That's a good thing. So what Source is, and what Sound Ag, the parent company, has done, is they have isolated this molecule, this strigolactone molecule, and I believe there was like 20 or 23 of them, and they found one that's easy to reproduce synthetically and to do it cheap enough to make it cost effective, where we can then spray that via our sprayer foliarly on the foliage of the plant, whether that's corn, soybeans, whatever. It gets absorbed into the leaf tissue, translocated down through the stem into the roots, excreted just like it would naturally if the plant had produced it on its own, where the microbes then pick up on it. So essentially it's mimicking the signaling molecule that plants do naturally on their own. Now, we know that the plants can naturally produce these molecules and signal the microbes, so why aren't they, and why do we need to add them, or what does the benefit of adding them when they're already doing it naturally, right? Well, here's the thing. We use a lot of synthetic fertilizers or manures or whatever, right? We put chicken litter on this field last year. There's a lot of manure or nitrogen and phosphorus in that manure. If the plant is already able to get all of the nitrogen and all of the phosphorus that it needs through its roots because we've put so much in the soil there, it's not going to produce these strigolactones. It's not going to signal the microbes to say, hey, I need this, because it doesn't. It's already got it, which is fine when the plants are small early in the season and we've got plenty of that fertilizer out there. But as we get later in the season and the demand of that plant ramps up, it needs more and more and more. And in the case of nitrogen, it may be getting harder and harder to find. Then all of a sudden the plants start producing these strigolactones. They're signaling those microbes to say, hey, I'm starting to need this, go find it for me. Well, what if we artificially spray those on, signal the microbes to start producing that stuff before the plant says that it's starting to run out and it's getting short, and we can keep them happier longer. That's the goal. That's what Source is trying to do, is it is trying to make the microbes already in our soil more active early in the growing season, or when you're applying this, in order to provide more nutrients to the plant from stuff that is either already in our soil or in the atmosphere, in the air that's in the soil, just kind of floating by, but the plants can't take it up. This is not any kind of GMO or any dangerous chemical that we're spraying out there. It's simply mimicking what the plants are already doing and just helping them get it earlier. And so I think it's a brilliant approach. I hope that it works. I really want it to work because I think that there is potential there. You know, in our area where we farm, we are in the Western Lake Erie watershed basin, or Western Lake Erie Basin watershed, whatever. Essentially, all of the water from our farm flows down through the river to the south and west until it gets to around Fort Wayne, Indiana, where it meets up with the Maumee River that comes back up to the northeast and goes through Toledo into Lake Erie. And if you're not from the area, you probably don't know, but Lake Erie has had a lot of significant algae blooms in the last 10 years or so, and there's a lot of blame being pointed at the farmers for runoff coming off of the fields. Now, we're not going to get into that one today, but the result of that fair or unfair criticism and blame of the farmers is that regulations are coming. It won't be that long before there are organizations or government bodies that are trying to say you can only apply X amount of nitrogen per year or X amount of phosphorus, and really limiting our ability to apply these commercial fertilizers. It's happening in Maryland with some of the Chesapeake Bay stuff. I know out in Iowa and southern Minnesota, they have huge issues with nitrogen in the Des Moines drinking water supply. These restrictions are coming. They're coming more than in localized areas. It's just a matter of time. And so anything that I can do to find products or processes to help provide nitrogen and fertilizer to our plants without actually applying commercial nitrogen and phosphorus and other fertilizers, the better I position myself for when those days come, when we are restricted as to how much we can put out. So I like it from that standpoint. That doesn't pay the bills, right? I'm not selling it based on that. It has to provide a return. The visual effects that I saw this year in physical differences looking at the plants that were sprayed versus not, it looks like it is going to show that difference. We will see. In the first replication over there, just based on the weights, it showed a pretty big difference. In some of my high management trials and other places, they have paid off, but that was not isolated to just this specific product. So that's what I have here, is just this product. It's the only difference across these strips is the timing and whether or not we applied it. And I'm really curious to see how much of a difference it's going to make, because I think that it's going to work. The science behind it is sound in my mind. Get that? Sound bag. Clever. But it still has to prove it. It still has to work. Now in beans, I use this on beans. We had one farm where we saw significant returns on beans. We had others where we saw a difference. Not super high difference, but it was enough to pay for the product. So we're gonna find out. But that's what Source is. There's two different products, one for corn, one for beans and wheats. The corn one can be used on other specialty crops as well, alfalfa and other things. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get some data back on this and keep testing it next year. All right, we got a full truckload. That might be a good thumbnail. You guys have had that same view from the combine seat for the last month, but solid 2 weeks. It's rare that I get out and get a good picture as something other than from the seat of the combine. So, you know, take advantage when we can. How we doing today, Brock? All right, Brock's gonna run my samples for me while I go grab some food. He came at 11, so he ate before he got here and doesn't need to go get anything, so we'll let him do that and get the truck empty. Yeah, this view. This is the one that you see all the time, right? I can make that the thumbnail, but we've already done that. So, anyway, we're back in the combine after we got some lunch here. I've got a paper with all of my results that Brock tested for me, so we're going to get that thrown into a spreadsheet here real fast and get some results on this source trial. And we're going to keep shelling this corn off. We're up to 105 acres done in this field of the 140 that's in it. So, what's that? 35 acres to go. We'll keep her moving, get this done, and then right across the road over there is the next field that's got 128 in it. So we're gonna do that. Oh, Brock's mad at me because I didn't turn on the machine thing. There you go, bud. Now it's on. Watch him press the button. You gotta turn it on. There it is, syncing. You gotta turn it on in the display every time you start the combine up, and I forgot when I got back. Yeah, when we have long rows and decent corn, we fill trucks up in a hurry. So we have a full truck down there. We're about to have a full grain cart. I mean, we should have another truck here quickly, but we're not, yeah. Can't keep up hauling with this puny little 8-row head. We can't keep up hauling. Better get a bigger one. Actually, you know what we should do? I know what we should do. We should buy a 6-row corn head. Then maybe we can keep up with the trucks. I think that's a good idea. Let's go to a 6-row. I mean, 24-row planters divide by 6 just as well as it does 8, right? Makes sense to me. He's full. Let's see what he's got on there. 63, 62, 64, yeah. Cart's full. More than what's gonna fit on the truck. But we do have an empty truck now. Also, I'm not going to a 6-row corn head. I can't do a 6-row corn head because our duals on our combine would be too wide. We'd be running over a row of corn. Won't work. We could take 6 rows with an 8-row corn head and just turn it into a 6-row. I mean, that would work. We could do that. So we tiled this farm 2 years ago, I believe it was. What are the chances? What are the chances? Anyway, I think we can make this one more round and then we'll have a cart full and the truck is full and we're gonna have to stop and get caught up. We only got about 10 or 11 acres to go here, so there's not very much left. But we'll be sitting around a lot if we don't help them catch up. 4:48. So yeah, we got time. We can get this done and hopefully open up the next field yet tonight. All right. We're down to, what are we down to? Maybe 4 rounds here? 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds it looks like. Oh, we're full, so we're gonna shut her down and go get the trucks. I think we're gonna bring some fuel over too. I've got enough to finish this, but the other field's right across the road. There's no reason to take the combine back to the farm for fuel. We'll just bring the fuel trailer that we have time for now, so I'll send Brock over to fuel up the combine while we empty some trucks and get caught up on that stand stuff. Side of it. Grain hauling. Stuff, you know, because, yeah, jeez, I learn how to talk. The propane truck made it. Is that the 3rd one this fall, I think? 3rd one in the last week and a half, probably. We've got a lot of propane in. The dryer is cranking out some bushels, though. 1,350 bushels an hour, 1,350 an hour. That's pretty good. Taking 5 points out. We'll take that. So a little grain system update for you on where we're at with everything. The GSI dryer bin is full. Phil dried the last batch through it this morning. It is in there, that bin full. Obviously our wet bin here we're working into. We're putting our wet corn in there. It fills up, we pull out of it, run it through this dryer, And so right now we have 2 lights on, so it's somewhere between there and there. Okay? That bin is full. That bin has soybeans in it. It is full. This bin is nearly full. There's maybe a ring and a half left at the top that we could put 4,000 to 5,000 bushels in it yet, if necessary, which we probably will need to do. That bin, the big one back there, I don't know where we're at exactly. Yesterday morning when I asked Phil, after he went up and looked at it, he said we had 6 rings to go. But we've been drying into it all day yesterday and all day today, so we may be down to 3 rings. Who knows? Maybe I'll run up there and take a look here in a few minutes. We do also have these 3 bins back here that are not tied into the grain system, the leg and everything. The 2 small ones are full of wheat. We have wheat in those bins, so we can't use them. This one, however, is empty and could put corn in there. I believe that bin holds, I want to say 12,000. So if we wanted to and necessary, we can dry into our overhead bin, set up our auger right there, and transfer into that one. Brock's got to fuel up the fuel trailer before he takes it over there, so we'll let him watch this and we'll go up and check our bin. Here's that first one I told you that we've got, about a ring and a half that we can put in there yet. Well, you're not going to be able to see anything, but it looks like 1, 2, 3.5 rings is what I can see. So to fill that bin, we're coming out of our dryer, which is the top leg up there. It's coming down that spout through a cushion box to this spout, down into here, up this double run conveyor into the top of the bin. It takes quite a journey to get up there, but it works and it's almost full. Okay, well, truck's empty. Brock had to fuel up the trailer there, so he's still fueling. We're gonna go back over and just shell and finish that field, and we'll worry about putting the fuel in when we're done with that one before we jump across the road there. So I'm gonna take this truck back over and get the combine started, and by the time that's full enough, Brock should be on his way over with the fuel trailer and jump in the cart. I missed the last corn going into the head in this field. Sorry for that. Anyway, we're done. Of course, just like always, we ended on the wrong end of the field, so we get to drive all the way up, but that's okay. Okay, well, we're gonna go empty this, fuel up the combine, jump across the road, I think. It's only 6 o'clock. We can work for a couple hours over there, get the field opened up, and set ourselves up for a big day tomorrow. Alright, well, I didn't get super close. Good thing we got a long hose on our fuel trailer. It's dark. It's the first time I've had to fuel in the field at the dark, so you know what that means. We gotta put up the light tower. Flip the light switch on. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't do much because Brock parked right there. That's okay. And we've got to get this opened up. Throw our service lights on. Up there. Let's go. It's dark and the wind has picked up. It's quite chilly out here. So I'm standing up here in the engine where it's nice and warm. The neighbor's doing some ripping over there. See all these synchronized flashing red lights? Those are windmills that are probably 30, 35 miles north of us. I was going to say, look, a clue to our wiring issues on the corn head, but the actual bulb rattling around in there probably means it just needs a new bulb. Alright, we are fueled up and ready to jump across the road and just down on the other side. Yeah, it's fine. Did not fuel the DEF tank because the DEF tank on our fuel trailer is empty. I didn't know that, but that's okay. It's actually good because we're right at the end of harvest. Like, I probably don't need any more DEF to finish harvest, and if we do, it'll just be a little bit. I always like to leave the DEF tank on the combine as low as possible over winter, and quite frankly, there's no reason to have a bunch in the fuel trailer either. So we'll just leave it at that and pump out of the mini bulk tank that we've got at the farm if we need a little bit more. Okay, doing some end rows. So this is the field that we have all of our replant corn in. This is replant corn here. This is 102-day corn, the replant stuff, but it was planted really late. I'd have to look up the dates of what the first plant was and what the replant was. I think it was the 20th of April when we planted it the first time, and maybe the 21st of May when we planted it the second time, something along those lines. I'm not sure. You can see our background map here. So the light pink, like this spot over here, and the brown are the original varieties, the stuff that did not get replanted. The purple and the darker pink are all replanted areas of this field. So I believe there is 128-ish acres in the field, and I want to say we replanted like 80 of it, something along those lines. So what that means basically is I have no idea where our moisture is going to be, where our yield's going to be. Stuff's going to probably be all over the place to an extent, and there's going to be places where we have rows that are a little bit all over the place where we didn't get exactly in the right spot. Although the auto path and the replant actually worked really, really well. So we'll get her opened up here and see how this corn does. One of the issues that the replant presents is that my section control doesn't work on the planter because you have to turn it off so you can plant over what's already planted. So we end up with this, a ton of overlap on the end rows. So we're on the last pass before the rows all go through the main part of the field, but when we were planting into the ends here, we didn't pick the planter up quite quick enough, and so it overlapped, and we got a bunch of that on this last pass, sometimes over 3 or 4 rows, or 5 rows in this case. So it's not great, but it is what it is. So getting the last of the ends for now. We got a lot of end rows in this field, right? But we got these ones done and these done, so we can start working these long rows off here. Let's see. I believe the light pink, the original planting here was 110-day 10L16. The dark pink is the 02K39. Those are the 2 hybrids that we've got on this side of the field here. So when I came in here to replant this field, I didn't want to mess with the electric poles that we have, and so I left the first 2 passes, right? We had one pass that kind of swerved on that side of the electric poles, and then this pass, the planter, that swerved on this side of the electric poles. So there's 48 rows here basically that is the original crop. You can see how thin it is. Like, it should have been replanted, but my theory was, well, there's enough there to see what happens, and I don't want to mess with the electric poles. The rows are crooked. It's going to be a pain anyway. Now I've got, oh jeez. So now we deal with this overlap as we curve, following the rows from around the poles, whatever, it's fine. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that the replant was a good decision, because when you look at my yield map, we got lots of red over here, lots and lots of red, and I can't see it real close, but there is a spot up here with some green, and it's right next to the stuff that we did not replant. So that's interesting. It means that you know, I kind of put the planter down in the right spots here. We'll watch it as we move into that stuff that is the replant corn and see how it compares with where we didn't replant, all of that. But yeah, kind of confirming what I did in the first place a little bit. Well, this field's gonna have better corn in it than the last one, and the last field is a much better farm than this. Whatever, I can't explain it exactly. Yeah, certain areas of it are really good. This area here is the 10L. This is the early planted stuff, and it's running over 200. Well, it is in spots. And this is really good corn here. And then you get a thin spot, and it's going to drop some. Doesn't seem to be a ton of moisture variation. It's all been 20 to 22%, the early or the late planted stuff, although sometimes it's a little slower to react in how that flows through the combine. It just, you never quite, I don't know if it's super accurate or not, but right here is a line there. We switched into the replanted variety. We'll see here as we go up a little ways whether the yield jumps way up or not. From what I could tell, the original planting where it was good is much better than any of the replanted stuff. but the replanted stuff is much better than any of the early planted stuff that is really thin. I mean, that's comparable and competitive in some spots, so we're going to watch this field as we go. My goal is to get to 28 acres done. We're at 18. If we get to 28, we can finish it tomorrow. Well, things are going pretty well here. Some of this corn is really good. I'm impressed. I've been disappointed in a lot of fields. I'm impressed in this one because I wasn't expecting a lot being replant. So I don't know if it's going to make 200 average, but the average is steadily climbing. We're up to 185, and when you look at the yield map as best you can see it here, like the edges were terrible. So the fact that it's getting better out here is good. We're over 25 acres done in this field. I think we're going to fill a truck and call it a night. Half-mile long rows, we can barely, well, not barely, but we can't make it very far the way back before we have to start unloading. So we got to unload for quite a long distance. That's okay. Combine is working really well. Like, my losses are gone to nothing. Sample is decent. Phil was complaining about some light FM, some sticks and chaffy type stuff, so we tightened stuff down, turned the fan speed up, and still don't have any losses. It's really good. And we're driving 5.5 miles an hour, 3,000 bushel an hour running through the machine. If we were in better corn, it would be more than that. But it's all good. So we're going to make one more round, clean up this strip that I've got here, and then that should be enough. Fill this truck, call it a night. Okay, well, we ended up with 29 acres in this field, so I call that a good day because that puts us at 102 on the day, our second 100-plus acre day of the week. And I'm hoping we get darn close to it tomorrow. There's 128 in this field, and I intend to finish it tomorrow. Question is, can we get rid of the corn? Also, Brock's not going to be here tomorrow, so it's a grain carting day most likely for me. We'll have Dad here in the combine. It'd be a good day for a live stream. Saturday afternoon live stream. My football teams play each other in a night game, so I don't really care what games are on in the middle of the afternoon. We'll do a live stream. Watch for that.